Hi, Brendan.
Hello.
Thanks for joining.
Really?
Okay. So I watched some of your videos and I found them quite interesting. So you have something interesting to say, and you also look very good. So that I think
Do
definitely
I?
helps.
Is it where?
Yeah, that definitely helps. Yeah, so maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself, whatever you feel is appropriate.
Hmm. Yeah, well, what's being communicated here, actually, it's funny because usually there's some story to attach to this person, Brendan Smith, that I could tell you. Um, but in the simplicity of what's being communicated, it's kind of the end of the story. I mean, the end or the destruction of the story and the storyteller as well. Um, So, to give you a story, I guess, about that communication in a simple way would be I, I, I never sought spiritually. There was no real seeking for for these things called enlightenment or self-realization or whatever. But all that happened was there was this person named Brendan Smith, apparently, and very simply and suddenly, that person wasn't. I mean, that's one way to say it. That person who, that I guess separate entity, that isolated entity, and this happened when I was in the woods and I had no background of non-dual. There's nothing about non-duality or any spiritual teaching. There was just the realization that the trees and life and the river, everything that is just happening. And there's actually no one it's happening to. There's no Brendan Smith who's doing seeing right now, or hearing, or moving the blood through this face. And it was just so simple and direct that there actually is no separate entity that can be found and discovered. And in the woods, this was many years ago, the trees and everything that was there, it was so obvious. It was not something that was even, abstract or very difficult to comprehend. It was obvious that there was no self that was controlling and growing the tree. There was no self, there was no center to what was happening there. There was no self that was running the river down the hill. Um, so, very simply, um, that's what I'm communicating. That's what's being communicated. And that's the story.
Okay, so pretty good. So, have you read any gurus or heard
No,
about?
no, none.
Okay, okay. So, what you are saying is similar to what some gurus, especially in non-dual circles,
Hmm.
in non-duality, talk about. And some people will say, even I will say sometime, that okay, that sounds pretty good, that sounds exciting. But say like I go and meet my say boss, and
Yeah, but I mean, the communication is that you don't go and meet your boss. I mean, no one's doing anything. That's the wonder. It's like
mhm,
there actually isn't an Arvin that's going to
mhm,
meet a boss.
mhm,
I mean, that appears that the idea and possibly even the feeling or sensation
mhm.
and the whole conceptual structure, the boss and oneself. Um, but all that's happening is life itself, just living, uh, playing the boss and playing the apparent separate person. Yeah.
Yeah, so in case of say like you gave example of a tree or
Tree. Yeah.
river,
Yeah.
so that makes sense in the sense
Yeah.
like say if you say tree, hey tree, do this for me. I
Yeah.
mean tree doesn't respond. tree remains. But if somebody comes and calls me by my name, or somebody comes eat and calls you by name, you respond. So you basically respond to a particular name,
Well,
to a
there is response, but there's no one responding. I mean, that's the hinge
Mhm.
of this. There, everything is happening spontaneously. I mean, whatever response or movement that comes out of you just asking that question, which just appeared here, there is not actually a person responding to the question. There's just the fluidity of and the magic of response.
Okay. No, that's fine.
Yeah.
So one thing is that I mean, you mentioned that you did not really have any great interest in spiritual teaching.
No.
You haven't read many gurus, and I guess that's not that uncommon. So most people are not that interested, at least that's my guess, that most people's main interest is not in knowing what is reality, what is God. Their main problem is suffering. So mental pain, anxiety, sadness, depression, disappointment.
Mhm.
So many people want to find out, is there any way I can avoid it or
But
reduce it?
yes, see, the very search can bring no fulfillment. The very entity that believes that they're in pain or suffering and that they can find an end to that pain and in a search with a guru or with a teacher, that very entity is the suffering. So that entity can do absolutely nothing to be free of that because it is the very illusion that is the suffering. I saw that very clearly because I had no teacher, nothing. So it was so obvious that when I started to learn about non-duality, the whole thing was a joke. It was a big scam, really. I mean, the fact that there is this appearance idea that there is somebody who understands something, and then every other people come to that person to learn whatever that is, to be free of suffering, to be whatever. But that very relationship in itself is the suffering. The guru is like Santa Claus. You you believe in it until you realize it never existed. I mean, and that's the only actual freedom. There's no progressive path, and there's nothing that can be helped there. There's just that, and I mean, the whole thing is about this boundless energy that's appearing as trees and rivers and beings is also appearing as supposed suffering and a supposed guru. It's appearing as everything, as spontaneously. I mean, that's the unbelievable magic of it. Yeah,
So same thing will apply to like going to gurus or
yeah,
seeking
yeah.
or like asking questions too, isn't it? That's also this same life energy, same boundless energy, same thing
Sure,
that is going
sure,
on.
sure, sure. Absolutely.
Okay, okay. So are you saying that
But I'm
as
just
a
pointing that there's no possible freedom for the seeker
Mhm.
because there is no seeker. I mean, that's the hinge. There cannot possibly be freedom somewhere else than this. It's like right now, this is all there is. It's just this. It can't be any more of itself. So nobody could ever find more of this. It's already all there is. And so it's ridiculous to say that there could be a path to all there is or a progressive stage to all there is, because all there is cannot possibly have a path or a progressive whatever it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think like many people credit Buddha with the idea of enlightenment,
Hmm.
the idea that there is a path or there is a system
Sure.
or there is a mechanics by which you can either eliminate
Oh yeah.
or
Yeah.
reduce suffering.
Hmm.
So are you saying that I mean when
You,
suffering is, I mean there is no end to it or there is no path beyond suffering.
the only end to anything is the end of the sufferer. There's never an end to anything that happens.
Mhm.
But the end of the person is the only thing that I'm communicating about. I mean, I've seen now after this that all these religious systems, they hinge on one thing,
Mhm.
and that is already the assumption and the belief that something is broken, that the human being, whatever, the seeker, is in need of some other attainment or enlightenment. So it's already based on a misperception. All the religious systems are already based in a duality, that there is a seeker, and that seeker needs to become like Ramana Maharishi, Christ, Buddha. And then there's progressive paths or stages to realize that. But the whole thing's a scam. I mean, it can't be anything else because it's just life on either end. There's not more life in this body than in Arvind's body. Life is all. It can't be. It can't actually be divided, and it can't be sought. The question of suffering ends when it's seen that life cannot be sought because it's all there is. It's already that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will give you like say a child,
Yeah.
say a child that is 9 year old,
Mm.
10 year old, and the child has no idea of Ramana Maharshi
Yeah.
or Jesus Christ
Yeah.
or enlightenment or spirituality. The child plays in playground and somebody says you are dumb or you are stupid or you don't know anything, and child basically suffers pain, mental pain. So child comes home, he says that it hurts me, he called me name, I feel very bad, I feel angry, I feel sad. So child wants to avoid the situation. So one way to
Yes.
avoid the situation is find a way that nobody can call you or that child stupid or any other name. And second way is you basically build some kind of understanding that allows you to not feel pain when somebody calls you a bad name
Yes.
or something that you do not like.
Yes. And I mean, oh, go ahead if you have more
So
to say.
what I was saying was that a spirituality or a spiritual teaching to
Mm.
some extent is trying to develop that understanding, trying to develop that kind of mental stability where external situations, name, do not impact you that much.
Mhm.
So, I mean, what is your opinion on that?
Yeah. So from what I'm communicating, it appears that all religion and spirituality is protection for the separate self. It offers that, so the child experiences whatever we call suffering or pain, and then seeks an answer. And in that seeking, they come up with things. The spiritual traditions say, you are awareness, you are consciousness, you are the son of the Father, you are Buddha mind. And all of these things that are said, then the person starts speaking. The separate person who believes they're real then believes, oh, I am consciousness. They believe I am a Christian, or I am um, close to the Buddha, or I've meditated for 35 years. So all of these concepts are absorbed by no one, but this apparent me absorbs these things out of their seeking for, out of the suffering that one's seeking. So all of these things, I believe, I mean, as from this communication, all religion then in some way is like a band-aid. All religion, but it's a band-aid over nothing. It's not actually protecting anything, though that's what it appears to do to the person.
So, so what I was pointing to was that even before religion,
Hmm.
this sense of ID, this sense of personality,
Hmm.
this sense of hurt or pain
Yeah.
is already present in a child because child is taught to respond to a certain name, certain ID.
Well, sure. The whole, I would say that the culture, it appears. priests, teachers, parents, they, since that belief and assumption that there are separate individuals and that they are a separate individual, then the child is trained in schools and everywhere that they are someone, that they are separate, that they are this or that they are, um, it could be anything, that they're a good athlete or that they are dumb, or all these things are conditioned, and the separate me or child then takes on that assumption that they are someone separate. But that seems to just be happening too. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this play. I feel the whole universe is in this play of hiding and seeking, taking on a separate face, feeling, even experiencing and feeling itself as separate, and then all of a sudden unmasked and realizing that there is no one, that there is not someone.
Okay, so even if say somebody realize that okay, this personality, this ID, this personhood is not real, is just an imagination. Still, when you interact in the world, when you go to work somewhere, or when you deal with cops, police officers, or your wife, your lover,
Mm-hmm.
or even your parents, friend, they still see you as a person, as an ID. Your bank account still has a name and ID, whatever you carry, ID card, everything. So everything is built around that personality. So even if somebody realize that it's a fiction, it's not something that you can really get away from. So how does
Well,
that?
yeah, I mean, the great mystery of this, though, is that there is no one at the center of the person. There's no personality, actually. And there's no one who's actually in pain. There's no child, actually. I mean, there is just life itself, this boundless energy happening in whatever form. You could say the formless playing in the form. I mean, the idea that there are gurus, bosses, police officers, there's actually nobody doing any of that. There's no one there as a fixed entity. There's no one there as someone, even though, yeah, that belief or that habitual way of seeing may be happening, or even that feeling, sensing of me. Um, yeah, I mean, to me now, this word, which is used in so many countless ways, non-duality, it is the play. It is the whole thing. The person who, or the apparent person, and the ending of that. It's both. It can't be. It's not. Non-duality is not just some enlightened perspective. It's every perspective. It's all, the whole thing that's happening in whatever way it's happening is that, and that is as it is. Yeah, it's as it
So
is.
so other than like whatever you want to call it, we can call it realization. We can call it knowledge. We can call it jnana or any other name. But what it means in, say, like practical life or day-to-day life or so-called real life, like going to work, dealing with cops, going to your bank, withdrawing money, how does it change any of that?
Well, again, when we use the words practical life, they're referring to an individual who's living.
Yes.
And that is the, that's being pointed at here as not actually being here. There's no Arvind and Brendan who are here right now.
So okay, so even forget like names. Say like say I have no idea. Say I have nobody calls me by any name, and say like, but are you denying that there is a body? So you accept that there is a tree,
Now,
there is a tree.
all there is this pulsating aliveness, which has no name, no form, You can't even call it anything. It's just what's happening right here.
No, sure. So what I'm saying is, even if you take out that construct of personality, do you think the body, as a body, do you think that this body and that body, and there are millions other bodies, do you think they exist? Do you think they exist as separate?
There's no existence as separate things. I mean, that's the, again, when it's seen that there's no separate person here, it is also seen that there's no separate people. All there is whatever we want to call aliveness, beingness, and it's all. It just like the tree and the river. There's no separate. Those are names, tree, river, which don't actually describe anything. I mean, I'm using them to describe woods, squirrels, whatever. But in this realization, all there is energy, aliveness, whatever we're saying that is, without any separation. It itself is wholeness. It itself is totality.
Okay. So when you refer to boundless energy,
Yes.
what do you mean? So what is this boundless energy?
Well, it's
No, so what I mean is, say, like I see a body, I see a tree, I see a star, I see a galaxy. I can see that, okay, they are all energy from whatever you want to call them.
yeah, it's just this, right?
Hello? Oh, I think.
Yeah. No. I was just I was saying it's just this.
Mhm.
It's I
Okay.
mean, when I say boundless energy, I'm just saying what is, just what is. It's not a conceptual thing. It doesn't need a definition.
Mhm.
It doesn't even have a definition. It's just this.
Okay. So does this knowing or knowledge has any impact on, I mean, a person's life, or is just you just imagine that, or just know that person is an illusion, and that's about it?
Well, I mean, I guess if we wanted to put it in these relative terms, yeah, energetically,
Mhm.
all there uh, all there is energy is
Mhm.
a totally different life itself that
Mhm.
is no one's and that
Mhm.
has no practicality and has
Mhm.
no purpose and
Mhm.
it has no value in terms of like relative. It's not like better. It's all there is. It's not like it's not that I have a better life. The fact that there is no I is life itself. It's something unimaginable. It's not something that can be bound and said to be better or worse, good or bad.
Mhm.
It is just life. It is just it's explosive and it's just life itself.
Okay. So, okay, so say like, I mean, say I'm assuming that you have this realization. So if somebody calls you,
Well, you
say
can't
like,
imagine. It's not. It's not something that works like that, though.
mhm.
I mean, no one has ever had this realization.
Mhm.
No one. There's never been a person to
Mhm.
realize anything.
Okay. So, okay. So how do you or how one responds to, say, like anything that happens to body, like body aches, body pain,
Yes.
or body get hurt? How do you respond?
Whatever happens, happens. It's just that.
So there's no decision making, like say you, so say you slip somewhere, you find something wrong. Say like a child slips on the sidewalk, mom or dad will say that, okay, don't walk this way, look where you are walking, remember it next time, don't do the same thing again. So
Yeah.
who, yeah, go ahead.
What about the child? Are you asking? What are you asking though?
No, what I'm saying is that a lot of life is about learning, is about memorizing, finding out what works, what doesn't work, what causes pain, what gives pleasure.
Yeah, so all those things you're describing are supposedly a person who's learning,
Yes,
who's memorizing, who's
yes,
describing.
yes.
I mean, they're all based on the idea that there's a separate entity even right here. I mean,
That is totally definition. That is like dependent on definition of entity, isn't it? So think about this one. So it is true that you have a body.
well, but that question,
Mhm.
the fact that there's a me that's separate from this does not have a body.
Mhm.
It is it is everything that is. It's this lamp, it's this room that's here, it's whatever is this. It's not
No,
I, it's not there's no I in here that has a body.
no, but
There's no possession of a body.
so that's why I mean you talked about some people say that you are consciousness,
Yeah,
you are awareness.
yeah.
So I think one of the reason behind that is so say like somebody comes and hits this table. I might be upset, but it doesn't really impact me. I do not feel any pain. I do not feel any ache. But somebody comes and hits this body. Now suddenly I am involved. And I'm
Yes, but
involved.
where is the I that's involved?
That's the awareness. That's the consciousness. So I'm not conscious of anything that is happening to the table, but I am conscious of anything that is happening to this body. And that's why there is this attachment. So something that happens to body, because this consciousness, this awareness has to feel that, be it pleasure, be it pain. So it's natural for this consciousness to get invested because, I mean, if my body is aching, my consciousness is almost always absorbed in that pain. When the body is fine, I can be at peace, I can relax, I can be well.
Hmm.
So I'm saying that that's how basically this investment in the body or identification with the body starts.
But there's okay. What I'm communicating though, there's no start to or end to the separate entity because there is no separate entity. There's no consciousness that is a separate entity. See, consciousness is not related to that. It's not that bodies. Whatever you're calling consciousness, what I'm calling boundless energy, being, whatever. It's not. It's something that's happening to everything. It's not located in that what we're calling body, Arvind body, or Brendan body. What we're talking about is not something that you can find that's located in some space. So just to say, yeah, to relate it in those terms, I don't see that.
No, it's okay. So let's take another example.
Yeah.
Say like somebody goes to an operation theater and had to go through some surgery and he or she is given general anesthesia and he or she become unconscious, so not conscious to anything that is happening to the body, cannot really respond to anything, any questions, doesn't recall anything during the surgery. So I mean in common term people will say that she or he lost consciousness, and when that person goes through this change every other person is fine. They are still conscious, they can still answer questions, they can still observe.
Hmm.
So I see no way of denying that there is a consciousness that is related to body, that
Yeah.
feels what is
Yeah.
happening to the body.
Yeah. But as I'm saying, that the consciousness you're referring to, and
Mhm.
again, what's being communicated here really has nothing to do with consciousness.
Mhm.
It
Okay.
doesn't. It doesn't have to do with that. I mean, the consciousness you're referring to is this separative me that is conscious, that knows it's whatever that can answer questions or respond.
Mhm.
It's something that is, yeah, you're referring to the me, or the apparent separate consciousness, which when I say boundless energy or something, it's an explosion of that. It's an explosion of the knowing. It's not something that can be known. Right here, this cannot be known. It can't be fathomed or known.
So one of my friends says, I mean, he sees consciousness as a problem. So the reason he sees it as a problem is because this is the beginning of attachment,
Mm-hmm.
investment, identification.
Mm-hmm.
So if this was just like say just another form of energy that I watch or that I don't watch, stars, galaxies, even tree, rivers, whatever happens to them is fine with me. But anything happens to body, because I'm conscious of it, it starts mattering to me.
Mm-hmm.
So body hurts, body aches, or body feels good.
Mm-hmm.
In all the way it affects. So the very idea of me, the very idea of entity, the very idea of ID rises inside the consciousness.
Yes, rises as consciousness. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
but
sen-
that's
it's
yeah.
the sense I am, that the boundless energy is just as it is, and then appears the sense I am. Oh, I am, and everything that we're talking about, that separative me out of this boundless energy, that's the separative me. Yes, then seems to be conscious of a body and of a problem, or contraction, and that's
Yeah.
what I mean. Freedom, or what I've been speaking about, is just the end of self-consciousness. It's the end of me. It's the total end of me.
Yeah, so even if you, I mean, even if there is no me as an entity, still the bodies are separate, at least to a large extent. So when something happens to one body, I mean, one person is aware of that pain, that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Something happens to another body, another person is, or another concept, whatever you want to call it, is aware of that pain, that feeling. And that's why I think this idea of separateness, separate ID, separate personhood comes. I mean, what I am thinking, unless I communicate, is very hard for you to know.
Mm-hmm.
What you are really thinking inside, unless you
Yeah.
communicate,
Yeah.
is very hard for me to know. So this gives idea that my memory, my thinking,
Well, yeah. The hinge is that consciousness always appears to be me, and it's not. Consciousness appears in its appearance in whatever you're calling body, mind, or I'm saying the separate me. It appears to be limited, finite. But life, what I'm saying is life or being, it itself is totally unlimited, and it plays being limited. It's playing right now, being experiencing itself as whatever it is. And there's no hypothetical. All the hypotheticals that we could create are, again, just imagined mind perspectives.
okay. So I think I mean that this would be enough for our this talk.
Mhm.
And if you have anything like concluding or ending remark or any summary, or where to find you, where to read more of you or
Yeah,
interact with you,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, please let us
Um,
know.
yeah. So all I can say, um, yeah, the essence of this communication, and what I guess has been at least seen to be the essence of what is called the non-dual communication, really leaves no trace of anything. It itself, like life, moves, and it leaves no one and no trace of itself. It is alive, and it's free. It's boundless. It's chaotic. Just like that. And you can see that or read more of this at www.everythingislooking. Everything. And read more there. Thanks, Arvind.
Okay, thanks a lot.